All right, welcome back. This is the home stretch of the show today, and we've got the municipal election coming up in Toronto, and we've got two candidates for Mayor of Toronto here right now. We've got Josh Rachlis here. Josh, you just mentioned you were here in 2009 talking about completely different stuff.
Yeah, I just looked it up on my YouTube. Looks like it was April 2nd, 2009. I was probably talking about my eco-comedy. I was making short films that taught people to take care about the environment, but in funny ways.
And now we know we don't even have to think about taking care of the environment. So.
Yeah, you were just saying that global warming's a hoax. It's been proven. So now I can just relax and run for mayor, not worry about the environment.
And worry about municipal issues now.
Yeah, that's a lot more fun.
And we got Gautam Nath also joining us here. And Gautam, well, of course, familiar face around here. So
thank you
welcome
for having
back.
me.
And we're going to find out about we're going to talk about the city and about. Do you want to just say something to introduce yourself, Gautam?
Yeah. So to my viewers, my name's Nath, and I'm running for mayor. It's an interesting development because we're really at the last leg. It's less than 3 weeks to go. I come from a corporate background, and the first sentence in the mayor's job description is the mayor is the CEO of the city. So I'm putting in my hand to be the CEO of the city.
Okay. All right. Okay, great. So we're going to hear a little bit more. I got a few questions here for both of you, and we'll ask the same question of each of you as we go along. And I'll start with you, Gautam. What was your motivation for running for mayor?
Okay. So as I started out, I come from the corporate world, which means I have years and years of experience in running large corporate enterprises. In fact, for the last 15 years, I've been on the board of directors of different companies, so I've really looked at leadership and looked at vision and perspective. The other thing is that I come from a very international background in the sense that I have probably visited about 35 different countries and 150 different cities in my career, in my life. And what that really brings is a very international perspective. The third thing is that since coming to Canada, and that is literally 10 years ago this month, October, I have been volunteering from week 1 onwards, to the extent that the amount that I have been giving back to the city of Toronto, Ontario awarded me the highest recognition for volunteerism, that is the June Colwood Award in 2017, and Canada recognized me as the highest award for volunteerism in 2018, literally May, when nominations opened, with the Sovereign's Medal. All of this sort of drove me towards saying, I'm here, I've got professionalism, I've got passion, and I want to give back to the city. And that is what drove me to run for mayor.
Okay, great. And Josh, what was your motivation?
Well, first, I want to say I'm jealous of, is it Nath? Nath, yes.
Like
he had a
Nath.
piece of paper with his name on it, so I just drew one myself. That's my name, and I'm Celebrity Josh on Instagram and celebrityjosh.com because it's easier to spell. JoshRachlis.com goes there as well if you know how to spell that. And I was motivated to run. I guess I like getting involved. I like hearing from the public and exchanging ideas with them. And years ago I did a song. We probably talked about this. No, I don't think I had done that. No, it hadn't been done. But the first time I was on this show, I was talking about my eco-comedy. And then I did a love song for Elizabeth May, the Green Party leader, I think in 2011.
That must have been a tough song to write.
Yeah, no, she's great girl. Great girl. That sounds sexist.
She's a friend of Brian Mulroney. For crying out loud.
Is she now?
I think she was back then.
I don't know. I don't get involved. She was shorthand for the environment for me. She represented the environmental message, and I noticed that there was that Obama girl song that went viral. There was the girl singing about how much she loved Obama, and I thought, well, I should do something like that for Elizabeth. And I thought, oh, that seems really too obvious. Somebody else is going to do it, but nobody else did it, so I did it. It kind of went viral. It was played on the radio, and CTV News sent a limo and picked me up and interviewed me about it and everything. And I really enjoyed sort of getting in the media and talking about the environment that way. And so when the next election came up, I thought, well, maybe I should run. So I wound up, and somebody on Facebook said, actually, I think I posted, it's like, how would I run for a party? Because I didn't even know how to get involved. And somebody on Facebook said, would you want to run for the Greens? I said, okay. And I met with a guy who needed someone for his riding. And I wound up going through the process there for MPP. and I enjoyed it, and I wound up being on Mike Schreiner's shadow cabinet because he liked. I got in the news again because the Toronto Star called and said, "Oh, are you going to do another funny song?" And so they wrote an article about the campaign song I made for myself. And so I ran for MPP the next time as well, and then I ran for MP with the Greens, and then I registered to run for mayor. I think that was around the same time as one of those elections. I just decided I was going to get involved anytime I could, get my name out there. People really seem to, they just like that you get involved and you want to hear their ideas and you want to help them. I remember I went to my very first debate at, it was Baycrest, the Home for the Elderly, where my grandmother was living, and there was a debate with the Liberal and the NDP and the Conservative guy. And when I got there, they were already sort of yelling at each other. It was in the middle of the debate already, and they were just screaming, and they were bringing up old things about each other's past because they all knew each other, and I was just like, and I wound up not even joining the debate. I just sort of sat in the back because I was so scared to go up. I'm like, I don't know all this history about the politics. I can't get involved. And then an elderly lady came up to me afterwards, and she was like, "Oh, were you supposed to be up there? You were with the Greens?" And she's like, "I really would have wanted to hear what you had to say. You know, that's so nice that you wanted to get involved." And I felt bad. I went home and I literally cried because I felt like I had let everyone down. I was there to help people and listen to them, and I just cowered. So I decided after that I just had to just dive in. And so I went to the debates, and I gave what knowledge I could. I answered the questions as best I could. And I just said I'll try to get involved any chance I get. So yeah, so I just threw my hat in the ring again. It's obviously difficult with fringe candidates like us that aren't as much in the media, that don't have as much a chance at running, and people say, "Well, why are you running? Why?" It's like, well, it's a democracy. I think it's we don't all have to run. We should all vote for sure, but if you can run and get involved as well, I think that's great. It all makes democracy healthier.
Okay, so with that previous involvement with politics, obviously with the Green Party, I mean, here we are. The city's got some issues, but so I'm just curious, briefly, can you talk about what your platform is for the city of Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, the things that particularly interest me are things I noticed when I go for my walks every night. I noticed that a lot of heritage buildings are disappearing. I love these old brick buildings. Like this studio is in one of the last beautiful old lofts that's still standing, and I just think it's important to preserve our heritage. You can see Yonge Street is being wiped out. Almost every little building that had a bar in it when I was young is gone now. It's all condos. So I want to do as much as I can to protect our heritage and the old buildings that make our city unique. I care about the environment, obviously, and I think a big part of that is transit. I like the King Street pilot. I wish we had implemented David Miller's Smart City or whatever it was called, Smart Track, just having streetcars all over the city. I think that would have been great. So I want to do as much as I can to improve our transit, improve bike lanes. I support the arts. I'm involved in a lot of arts myself. I've had a media pass for TIFF, and I like drawing and singing and everything, so anything I can do to support artists. And also entrepreneurship. I left my job 3 years ago. I was working in advertising as a copywriter, and I've been thinking a lot about how to make money on my own and start businesses, and so it really fascinates me, all the startups that are happening around here, and the old buildings that are being repurposed for workspace things for startups to work in. So I want to support all of that. I also like animals. I support dog parks, but parks in general. I think putting the park over the rails that they're planning to do, I think that's a great idea. And technology. I like the fact that Google wants to build sort of a smart neighborhood. I'm all about supporting the growth of technology, and I love that Amazon and Google and Uber and Shopify, they're all building new locations here, so I support the future. So it's kind of a balance between I love progress, I love scientific advancements, but I also love old buildings that I want to preserve, and I also love the environment, so it's finding a balance between all of that. Those are the things I care about.
Okay, great. And Gautam, how about you? What's your
So
platform?
some of the things that Josh you spoke about, I echo those things. So that's about preserving heritage and talking about taking us into the next generation of technology. But in my platform, I have a 10-point action plan. So if you go to my website, which is www.gn for the numeric mayor-to.ca, you will be able to have a look at my action plan. But in a gist, it's a couple of things. One is I've been here 10 years. I'm seeing the city go down rather than go up. Okay, and I see the biggest issue here is jobs. And most of the people who work or who live in the city of Toronto are finding it difficult to make ends meet. I was reading an article today that we talked about almost 60% in the next 4 years of Toronto City is going to be below the in the low income group. I mean, that's not right, right? We've got to get the jobs back to Toronto. We've got to get the Toronto residents working within the city. And I feel very passionate about that in terms of empowering people to be able to give them job skills, to be able to move ahead, to bring in international organizations like you talked about, the Googles, the Amazons, etc. Come in here, set up headquarters, set up second headquarters, bring the jobs back to our people, because that is the root cause which is causing all the other issues, right? The other one, which is a little bit tilted towards something special, and I talk about it as actually the 10th point in my 10-point action plan, is about building a legacy that will equal CNTARs. Okay, like we have a lot of the world, when they come to Toronto, they come here to look at the CNTARs. Almost every tourist here would come in to look at the CNTAR. Why can't we have a second? Like Paris has the Louvre and Eiffel Tower. Like London has many things. So
what could it be?
I'm not qualified. Probably.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I thought about that kind of thing as well, because I've been noticing for years. If somebody goes to a city like New York, there's certain icons you'll have a photo with, or that silver bean in Chicago.
Yeah.
I think it's called Cloud Atlas. I mean, everybody who goes to Chicago immediately takes a picture of themselves there, and that's on their profile picture on Facebook, and that's how you know they were in Chicago. And recently I was thinking, well, how would you know you've been to Toronto? Like, what are you going to have a picture of?
Well, we used to have the mooses.
The mooses, the moose, the meese. That was something, but those are all gone now. But what I love is that at least now we have the Toronto sign at City Hall. Like when they put that up for the Pan Am Games, I thought it's brilliant. It says Toronto. It's not even as obtuse as the silver bean statue where you have to know that's Chicago. Here it says Toronto. We've got a giant Toronto sign, and everybody takes selfies with that now. So I think that's great branding. If you've been there, you've got a selfie, and now you can say, look, everybody, I was there. So I would love to see more of that kind of thing. Because, like I work in advertising, I still freelance in advertising, and that's how I'm always thinking. How can you brand the city? How can you make people want to come here? And in this world of selfies and Instagram, you really have to have things that people can quickly take a picture of, and they quickly identify Toronto. So I love that we've kept the sign there. I don't know there's that circle beside the word Toronto now with like black and red and yellow. Do you know what that means? They put some logo beside it.
What is it like?
It's like 3 triangles in a circle. I was like, is it the German flag? I don't know what it is, but there's a maple leaf on the other side of it.
Not too sure.
I'll have to go have a look. It's probably some Illuminati symbol.
Exactly. It's probably now that I've pointed it out, somebody's going to come whisk. I'm going to be disappeared.
Okay, let's get through a few concrete issues here. I mean, Josh, you already mentioned transit in general, but specifically, what would you do with transit in Toronto? Because it's still a big problem. Getting around in the city's getting worse all the time. Yeah,
I mean, I think nobody has the magic solution, but it sounded like, I remember I went to a talk that David Miller did. He works for the World Wildlife Fund now, and he gave a presentation a couple years ago showing his smart track. Is it smart? No, John Tory's smart track. What was David Miller's thing called? Smart, whatever it was. The plan was there. They figured out here's where all the tracks everywhere will be, and that's it. So I would just implement that. The work's been done, the approvals have been done, it was all ready to go. Like a lot of people don't like streetcars. They say, oh, yeah, we need more buses. Buses can go around things. But I think if you actually ride transit, you realize that streetcars are a lot more comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
You can get a lot more people on them. They're a lot faster. And when I've been in cities that have rail, I mean, it's just you can get around everywhere. I was in Israel a couple of years ago, and they've got these streetcars that just go around, and they're not even it's not even sidewalks. It's sort of like cobblestone. It's just beautiful to have these streets with the tracks come through, and you can walk, you can bike, just these mixed-use streets. So I would put more of those in, because if you can easily get around the city, then you don't need cars as much. I don't think the answer is what can we do to get more cars into the city? As any big city knows, like London or New York, you have to do whatever you can to reduce the amount of cars in the city. And yeah, you can have taxes and have only half the cars allowed to come to the city at certain times, like they do with their license plates. I think they do that in Mexico City as well. But if you can make it easier for people to get around without cars, that's the best way, because then they won't need them.
Okay. Gautam?
So what I feel about transit, and we all know, we've been listening to the debates, we've been listening to the incumbent speaking about his smart track, and Tory Keith Smith talking about her options, and I'm not even going there. I'm saying that's for the experts to see, and that's for, I think, a bigger picture. It's not just Toronto, it is for Doug Ford and the province to see how they connect all the different nearby cities, etc. But I have a few thoughts which I think are literally in front of our face, and I don't know why we're not reacting to them, because they can make a big difference with the crowd that comes into the city. And the first one is about encouraging more and more organizations to have their employees work from home. So if you have a 5-day working week and one day you're working from home, do the math. It's 20% off the street. So if you have anything between 1 to 2 days working from home, you've got up to 20 to 40% off the traffic off the street on a particular day. So that's one very easily doable thing. So that's one. The second thing is there are, when I look at the city of Toronto, I see, for example, the weekend comes and everything is shut down, right? There are many other cities in the world where they don't do it that way. What they do is they zone up the city and they give different off days to different parts of, different days of the week to different parts of the city. So that really means every day of the week there is some place that's closed, and it's not as if the whole city is closed and the whole city is open. And that really gives relief to traffic on the streets because of that. The third thing is, I've noticed we have the tourist buses that go up and down, and these are the hop-on or hop-off buses that are double-deckers. So that means we do have streets that can take a double-decker service, and I think TTC should bring back their double-decker service to be able to add people to that. So these are easy solves, and that's what I want to talk about. Is that's where we should be looking at first before we start deciding we're going to spend $500 million in building a track that goes either left or right or north or south. So that's what I think about.
I love the idea of working from home. I don't know what the city can do to make that easier, but
well, if they give some taxes,
get tax relief. I mean, that's how you use.
Yeah, that's how you use the.
That's your tool. You sort of incentivize things like that, because like at my old advertising job, I was like, why are people coming into work? Like, everything we do is on the computer. Basically, I'm going to the office and then taking my laptop back to a coffee shop. So you've got me going back and forth, travel. Yeah, I mean, unless you're actually building wheels for a car or something, almost everything you do now is on the computer. So
that could be a slippery slope, though. We start getting people to work from home. Next thing you know, they'll be moving to Hamilton or North Bay, and the city will empty out.
Well, isn't that the issue right now? Like, everything I hear from politicians and the public is that the city's unaffordable. So if you make it easier for people to move out of the city, now there's less demand to be in here, and things are less expensive. And I think that's the only way you can make things less expensive. I don't think people keep saying we need to build affordable housing, we need to do whatever we can to make it more affordable. It's like, well, it's expensive to live here because everybody wants to live here. So if everybody wants to live here, the only way to separate that out and decide who gets to live here is to make things more expensive. If you're willing to pay for it, you're willing to pay for it. I don't think it's up to the government to decide, okay, we're going to make it cheap for some people, and then how do they decide who gets to live here cheaply or whatever?
Sure.
So yeah, make it easier for people to live in Hamilton, and then people can spread out.
And also what they say, I mean, we have a population of 3 million in the city, but every Monday to Friday, there's another 2 million coming in and going out. They are coming in from 905 because they've got jobs here.
Well, the reality is that the city, the real city, not the city that's defined by the borders, but the real, the only
GTA,
reason Vaughan is a city is because it's next to Toronto. It's part of Toronto, really.
Absolutely.
That's just the reality.
Well, we had
right?
a night at our condo a couple nights ago where our local councillor candidates came and spoke, and Joe Cressy was saying, I think, that the population of this what do you call it? Area or whatever.
GTA?
Or no, just like this. If he's running ward,
the
it's like 300,000, but during the day it becomes 900,000 or something. Like it triples just during the day, and then he goes home. But I mean, that's, I guess, the nature of cities. I mean, people come here to do their
That's
jobs
why the
or
pressure
whatever.
comes on.
Yeah.
That's why. So
Well,
Yeah.
okay. So I'm going to ask you this question, both of you. Maybe I'll start with you, Josh. I mean, great ideas are one thing, right? Whether it's building out the subways or whether it's offering tax breaks to businesses for whatever reason. But it just seems to me the real reason why so much doesn't get done comes down to funding. And, you know, you ask the taxpayer, they don't want to pay anymore. And so to do all these great things, whether it's from your platform, Josh, or yours, Gautam, you know, where's the money going to come from?
Yeah, well, I mean, the city obviously only has so many ways to get taxes. I guess it's just property taxes, really. We wanted to toll the gardener, but then Kathleen Wynne said no, so then that was a source. So maybe if the province gives you more abilities to tax, to make money, you can do that. Otherwise, you know, who knows? I don't think anybody has the magic answer. People always talk about, oh, we got to cut fat at City Hall, but then they try and they're like, well, there's not really a lot to cut. So I guess you just do what you can. You partner with businesses to get them to sponsor things as much as they can, you know, in the way that Google is saying, all right, we're going to develop the Portlands and make our little smart area. So you partner with businesses and you cut the fat where you can. I'm sure, I mean, like any business or government, there's waste, I'm sure. And you do what you can. And I mean, there is no magic way for any government to do everything.
So one of the points that I have in my 10-point action plan is to do a financial ABC analysis of the city's expenses. So the expenses and the income and the outflow. So once you do an ABC analysis, like you said, you will identify the A items which are the most that are sucking up most of the money,
Yeah.
or that are giving in most of the money. And then if you do a little tweak on an A item, it ends up resulting either in a large amount of savings or an extra amount coming in.
Yeah.
So that's one. The other thing is what I was talking about is bringing jobs back to Toronto. When the 905 comes in and takes their salaries and goes out, much of the spending happens outside of the city. If we had the salaries in the city, then the spending will stay in the city and the economic vibrancy will start picking up, and then businesses will start picking up. So it's a vicious circle, but if you can get the jobs back here, then that changes a lot of things in terms of crime, in terms of transit, in terms of housing, in terms of affordability, because we've brought economic vibrancy back to the city.
And maybe a flip side of that would be, for example, a police officer who works in Parkdale but owns his house in Whitby. Maybe people in Parkdale who live in Parkdale should be the ones who are taking those kinds of jobs.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, people talk about the high taxes and everything. I mean, I don't know how it all works. I'm not an accountant, but I own my first condo, and my mortgage is almost $3,100. My condo fees are almost $1,000, and my taxes are like $377. So it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's a small expense for my so it's, you know, if they raised my taxes 10%, which would be you'd never be able to do it, it'd be another $37 a month. Like, so I don't even know what I mean, how much are people paying? Like, it seems like we're not paying that much for what we get.
I think we're paying more for our credit card interest fees.
Oh yeah, I pay at least $1,000 a month on my credit card interest.
So those interest fees are so much higher than the property taxes. So
we're doing pretty well if people actually look at what we're paying. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you about this. Of course, we've had the big controversy. Doug Ford got elected Premier of all of Ontario, but he seemed to concentrate on Toronto in terms of slashing the size of City Council just as the election was already underway. And now people have talked about this in the past, but maybe some people are talking about maybe Toronto should become its own province so it doesn't have to be beholden to Ontario. And then, of course, Ontario could build its own new legislature somewhere out there, outside of Toronto. But, I mean, how do you guys feel about, the idea of Toronto having to take its political situation into its own hands, and this council slashing that happened as with the election already underway?
I think if we do that, then where do we stop? Because what stops another city saying, I want to do it for myself, and then yet another and yet another? So I don't think that's doable, and I don't think that's practical looking forward.
Okay. How about the city council size?
The city council size has debates on both sides of it. My personal tilt, coming from a corporate background, is the fewer the better, because then decisions get taken. I mean, for example, we talked about the other day in the debate on the Arts Council, and Toronto was fighting for $25 per head budget for arts and culture, and it took them 14 years to reach 25, and now it's too little too late. And immediately we were talking about it. In fact, I recommended, no, it should not be 25, it should be 50, right? So it just takes too long for council to come to a decision because there are too many cooks.
Well,
right?
maybe Doug Ford could make all the decisions.
So
Well, that's
right?
the thing. By that logic, if fewer is better,
Yeah.
then maybe one is best, or none, right? So like, what's the magic number? Is 25 better than 46? But 10 would be better than 25.
Yeah,
I mean, who knows, right? I mean, I've been reading a bit about it, and they talk about how LA has their own elected sort of neighborhood governments, which seems to make sense.
Well,
I
we
mean,
used to have that in Toronto before the megacity came along.
well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Because Toronto itself was a thing, and then the other cities around it were their own things. Because, I mean, how can Mississauga and Scarborough and whatever other cities are part of
Brampton,
the
Bramley.
yeah, like, I mean, they don't have the same interests. I mean, even downtown Toronto doesn't have the same interests as, say, Yonge and Eglinton or whatever. So how is a council... I mean, anywhere that you can get people more involved and more responsible for a smaller area, you can make decisions better suited to that area. So
Yeah, take it down to the neighborhood level.
yeah,
Or
Yeah.
whatever.
but I
Yeah,
mean,
makes
that's
sense.
what I think we should do then. Like, I mean, whether we can make it an actual elected body or not, I mean, anything people can do to organize and say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to sort of take matters into our own hands, and we're going to do what we can. I mean, like, whether that's neighborhood groups or business associations for certain areas, I think people should take responsibility, and if they want something done, form a group and try to make that happen. Because a lot of people tend to just yell at the government and blame the government for everything, and it's the prime minister, it's the president, it's the whatever. But okay, well, if you want something done, get people
Get down and do it
together
yourself,
and
yeah.
do it. Yeah, like I'm all about people taking responsibility for their own lives and their communities and getting things done, rather than just getting mad at the government and asking them to fix everything.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about crime and safety in the city. It's been a difficult year. I think we're headed for a record number of murders in the city this year. We've had a couple of horrific kind of mass killings in the city. Josh, what are your comments on that? What can the city do about that, or what would you do about it as mayor?
Yeah, again, it's one of those things where there's polarized ideas, right? You say, okay, more police, but then people say the police are racist, and some people say, well, you should be carding, and other people say, well, carding's racist. I don't know. I mean, I feel like maybe there is nothing you can do in terms of stopping crime entirely. Like, I mean, the more you crack down, the less freedoms you have. So, and also, I mean, the fact with social media now and the news, I think we tend to exaggerate in our minds how bad things are. Like, of course, we're going to see in the news about these a couple of terrorist acts, but in the grand scheme of things, in terms of how many millions of people there are in the city and how many interactions there are daily, we are pretty safe. Like, anybody that visits the city, they always ask, oh, can I walk down the street, or can I go out at night? I'm like, yeah, I've never had a problem. And of course, I'm a man, and maybe I'm not, it's different for a woman walking around or whatever, but we have a pretty good city. I've always had pretty good relations with the police. Whenever I need anything, they're there for me. So I would listen to them. I would listen to their advice on what they think is best. I think we tend to get a bit irrational with all this talk about race, because a lot of it is about subconscious or unconscious bias. And I took psychology, and I care a lot about science and rationalism. And when people start talking about invisible things that there's no way to actually observe, I get a little nervous. So I'm about the numbers and the stats and doing what's actually rational and reasonable to help people out.
Okay, great.
Interesting.
And Gautam, how about yourself?
Yep. as Josh talks about, I mean, there's always the balance between how much police force do you put in and how much do you work at a more economic level and education and that sort of thing, is dealing with the youth, giving them things to do, getting them involved in different things, but at the same time having a hard hand when you find gangs are involved and drugs are involved and guns are involved. So it's always playing a balance between the two, and I think that is something that we've got senior level people in the government. For example, Mark Saunders, a very qualified man. He understands the city. I think we're not giving him enough empowerment to do what he needs to do. And we've got many different levels from within the school system itself that can work with the kids to treat them right before they actually get into the streets. So I think it's both. But I heard a funny thing, and this was literally 2 days ago. I was sitting with some people, and we were talking about this subject, and especially because we've crossed, as you mentioned, Hugh, we've crossed the last year's murder rate already in September itself. And one of the guys recommended, and I thought I'll throw it out here, but he said, why don't we're going into the modern era, we're going into technology. So instead of getting more and more police out there on the streets, why don't we go with drones in the sensitive areas? And let's have police drones out there watching and monitoring. And we started talking about it, and he said that retired police officers could be great people who could be sitting at home, work from home, and monitoring these drones, and having their own area and going about, because they know how to think from a crime prevention perspective, but we use technology to get there. So
starting to sound like a Black Mirror episode.
So it's, yeah,
a little Terminator, RoboCop.
So but that's the future coming in, and so who knows? But these are the kind of conversations that are happening in people's homes and among people as relates to crime and security.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, all of that, again, comes back. Yeah, it's this balance, because every time you make things safer by having cameras everywhere, that's a bit of your freedom taken away. So it's what's the right balance. But I agree, anything you can do to keep kids busy and occupied, and community centers and arts programs, so that's what they're doing after school. It keeps them from getting bored and going and doing crimes. And at the same time, there's always going to be people who are taking advantage of the system and committing crimes, and so you have to give the police what they need to take care of that. And
Okay, so let's let's kind of wrap this up here. Give you both an opportunity to just leave voters with a final impression, and maybe you can give out some contact information where people can follow up if they want to get involved in supporting your campaign. Josh, you want to go first?
Yeah, okay. Well, like I said, I'm all about supporting the arts and creativity and innovation, protecting our heritage buildings, protecting the environment. I walk around, you'll see me picking up litter everywhere I go. I've even got a garbage arm that somebody bought me for my birthday, so I pick up cans.
Those things are great, aren't they?
Oh my gosh, you can pick up like a dime with it, like from a distance. It's fantastic. I feel like a superhero. And if anybody wants to, I love to just interview people. I've noticed that I'm just randomly, every time I'm at St. Lawrence Market or walking down Ossington, I just interview the businesses I meet. So if anybody has a business, they want me to interview them, help promote them on social media, reach out, or if anybody has any ideas for the city, I can interview you about that. And I just believe in using the power of this kind of thing. I mean, just even 9 years ago, when you told me we were going to be on a live show, I was like, so what? What do you mean live on the internet? How does that work? And you're like, people can go on the website and look at it. Like, it was blowing, I didn't understand, but now I'm like, of course, right, Facebook Live, we could be live from my phone right now. So we should be using that power to share love and ideas. So you can go to celebrityjosh.com if you want. I interview celebrities at TIFF, so I'm celebrityjosh.com, or joshrachlis.com if you know how to spell my name. They both go to the same place. I'm Celebrity Josh on Instagram, or Josh Rachlis on Twitter or on Facebook, and hit me up. And every time I hear from the public or just meet with the public, it just warms my heart. I just realize that, because there's so much anger on the internet, you just read all this hatred and crap and comments and everything, but when you actually talk to people one-on-one, you realize there's a lot of good people in the world, and we all want to make things better for each other. So let's all get together.
Great. And I don't have that creative...
Here, I'll draw one for you while you're talking.
Thanks. what I'd really like to end this, and thank you, Hugh, for having us on the show, is I want to actually talk to the people in the city of Toronto and say one thing, that, you know, our city comprises of two kinds of people. There is more than 50% of us that come from a multicultural background. Okay? And then we also have the Canadian mainstream that lives in the city. So I'd like to talk to each one separately. So to the multicultural people, I come from that background. I've walked the path. I've been down that journey. But what I find when elections come around, you guys don't come out and vote, right? When I read the stats of last year's, less than 30% of our multicultural communities have come out to vote. So please, if you want to make a difference, if you are worried about your lot in life, and if you're concerned about what happens to my kids in tomorrow's Toronto, and if you're not happy with the last 4 years of the city, please come out and vote. And maybe you might want to vote for Gautam. The other is I want to talk to the mainstream Canadians. And I also, like, my mom's from Europe, right? So I share part of the journey that you guys have been, because your forefathers came in several generations ago. But when I came to Canada, and when I see the corporate world in Canada, I find that we guys are not globally competitive, okay? And having come from an international, multinational, international, global background, I think I can bring a lot more to the city and to the corporations here and to your lives moving forward. So if you want to change, and if you want to look at being globally competitive, think about voting for Nath. So thank you so much, and
there's your
put
sign.
Up the sign.
Is that how to spell your name?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then is your website gt4-mayor.com?
GN for
GN for mayor. Wait. GN for mayor -to.ca. All right. Yeah. So there. That's what I meant. And there's you. I drew you got a bit of stubble there. I like it. It's very Miami Vice. And I drew your corduroy. People can't see the detail there unless this is 4K. But I love the corduroy jacket. And there you are. So there.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I just want to say thanks to both of you for coming in today, because the election's coming up. It's important, and I don't think that the voters have really had the opportunity to get to know all the candidates, and so it's good to really just sit down, have this kind of conversation, find out what you guys are all about, and give people the opportunity to make a smart choice.
Wonderful.
On October 22nd. So thanks both of you for coming in here today.
Thanks.
And that's it for the show for today. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll be back here at 1 o'clock for more Liquid Lunch here on thatchannel.com.